Xin was orphaned during the war. He was sold into slavery, and on the way, the people taking him to his new owner stopped when they saw the famous General Wang Qi. The boy was amazed by the greatness and power of the military leader and wanted to one day become the same as Wang Qi. This meeting took place in 255 BC in ancient China on the territory of the Western Qin Kingdom. In those days, China was torn apart by civil strife, and there was no end to bloody wars. But that didn't bother Xin too much. He was brought to a small village and forced to work. Here he met a boy named Piao, and they became friends. Xin dreamed of one day becoming a free man again, but Piao was sure that this was impossible. The only way to escape slavery is to become a skilled swordsman. With his help, you can earn a military rank and become one of the people. Burning with the dream of becoming generals, Xin and Piao begin training. They used sticks instead of blades, and their skills grew every year. As adults, they could wield swords no worse than the highest-ranking military leaders. During the next battle, General Chang Wenjun passes them by. Seeing Piao, he was struck by his resemblance to Lord Yingzhen and decided to hire the boy. He asked for time to think. First, he wanted to consult a friend. Xin said that Piao would be a fool to refuse such an offer, and Piao agreed. The son was left alone. He continued to improve his swordsmanship, and one day managed to pierce a stone with a wooden blade. One evening, his elderly comrade Piao burst into Sinyu's hut. He was wounded and only managed to hand over the card. Piao asked to come to the place marked on it, and added that Yingzhen's brother staged a coup and the ruler was in danger. Piao then died, and Xin granted his request. He escaped, taking his friend's sword with him and meeting bandits along the way. They tried to take the blade, but Xin easily dealt with them. Nearby was an eccentric teenager in a bird costume. He just watched Xing and did nothing. Meanwhile, his killers are on Piao's trail. Former Army General Zhuo Qi now became a simple executioner and tried to find and finish off Yingzhen. The killer also took part in the chase with him. It was he who inflicted a mortal wound on Piao, but Zhuo Qi recognized him as Yingzhen's double and ordered him to continue the pursuit. He ordered the village to be burned and its inhabitants slaughtered so that there would be no witnesses. After dealing with the thugs, Xin found Yingzhen's hideout, and when he saw his old friend inside, he was speechless. But then a killer appeared, and everything became clear to Xin. Piao became the king's double and died protecting Yingzhen's life. Xin vowed to avenge his friend and was the first to kill the killer, but he did not have time to fight the ruler. They saw Xin's village burning and realized that Zhuo Qi was already close. I had to run. Yingzhen has an appointment with General Chang Wenjun, but he doesn't know how to get out of here without being noticed, but the teenager in the bird costume does. His name is Liao Jiao, and he comes from a mountain tribe. Liao offers the king help in exchange for money. As they leave, Yingzhen explains how Piao sacrificed himself for him. Xin flares up and rushes into battle, but Yingzhen stops him and says that no one forced Piao to do this. Piao understood everything perfectly. He was happy to serve the king and sacrifice himself for him. At the same time, General Wang Qi arrives at the palace of the new ruler. He carries Chang Wenjun's head with him. True, the face of the deceased is disfigured and his identity cannot be reliably established. However, no one dares to call Wang Qi a liar. In exchange for General Chan's head, he asks for his land. The king agrees. Entering the bamboo forest, Xin and his companions meet a local hunter. He shoots poison darts at them from a pipe. Sina manages to defeat the man, and Liao takes his pipe. Just as Xin delivers the finishing blow, one of the arrows hits him. He lost consciousness and woke up in the royal hideout. Here they remained to wait for General Chan. Despite his promise to leave him, Yingzhen still brought the wounded Xin here and left it behind. Soon, Chang Wenjun and his men arrive at the hideout. They tell how Piao died a heroic death, taking his pursuers with him. And only thanks to his dedication and courage, the ruler and Chan himself are alive. Meanwhile, Yingzhen's brother Cheng Jiao had amassed a huge army and was preparing to start a new civil conflict. He hated everyone who had commoner blood and even demonstratively killed one of the soldiers who came from a lower class. Lord, I don't deserve such happiness. True, the ruler did not commit suicide himself, but at the hands of a giant monster, only outwardly resembling a man. After discussing the situation with General Chang, Yingzhen decided to immediately return to the palace and fight Cheng Jiao's army. To resist this army, he needs loyal people. However, Chan's warriors are too few, and the general suggests turning to the mountaineers for help. Injun agrees to this because the warriors of this tribe are incredibly strong. There's just one problem. The inhabitants of the plains once deceived the highlanders, and now they are in a state of undeclared war. However, Injun suggests going to the mountains. He relied on Liao Jiao because this teenager spoke the language of the mountains. On the way, Injun, General Chang, and others were captured and taken to the ruler of the mountain people. He refuses help. Moreover, he decides to kill anyone who enters his domain, but Xin makes the king change his mind. The ruler takes off his mask, and it turns out that a woman is hiding under it. The queen agrees to form an alliance with Injun. But even with an army of mountaineers, there are too few people to face Cheng Jiao's huge army. Therefore, it was decided to act secretly. They will infiltrate the palace disguised as mountaineers to join Cheng Jiao. The group led by Xin will then go through a secret passage in the palace to kill the ruler. The other one, which will include Injun, will remain to fight at the door and distract the advisors. Only a few dozen people, including Injun, Xin, and General Chang, were allowed to pass through the outer wall of the palace. Then the battle began. The palace defenders were armed with crossbows and fired at the attacking mountaineer warriors. Soldiers stepped forward, and the fallen warriors rose to fight again. The arrows could not harm them. They were incredibly durable. Thanks to this, they were able to hold attention for a long time, allowing Xin and his group to penetrate as far as possible. The battle for the throne turned out to be very bloody. Injun, Queen of the Mountains, Yang Duanha's people, General Chang, and their loyal warriors fight to the death. But Cheng Jiao had thousands of soldiers at his disposal. They largely exhausted the attackers. Upon learning that his brother had decided to take the throne for himself, Cheng Jiao was delighted. After all, he doesn't need to look for Injun now. The former ruler himself fell into his hands. Xin rushed forward, but his team was blocked by Zhuozi's warriors. I had to deal with them, but the mountaineers could not cope with it. And just when Xin thought they had the upper hand, a huge monster appeared. This Asian country boy dispatched his opponents effortlessly. No one could resist the giant, he was so strong. And only Xin was able to knock down this monster and kill him. He then led the survivors into the palace. Among them was Ilio. But when he burst into the king's chambers, he was not afraid. He had Zhuozi's trump card in reserve. This bloodthirsty warrior will stop at nothing. His desire to kill is too strong. But he doesn't care who's in front of him. Zhuozi dealt with the mountaineer warriors, and then Xin entered the battle. And at this moment, a real massacre takes place at the walls of the Creator. Queen Yang Duanha and General Chang brought more and more soldiers against Injun. Their own fighters were demoralized. When they saw the next attachment, they were ready to surrender. But Injun inspired them with a fiery speech. The battle resumed with renewed vigor. And while they fought, hoping that their accomplices would soon kill Chen Jiao, Xin was losing to Zhuozi. He lacked the self-control and skill of a seasoned warrior. But he won thanks to strength and courage. And only when there was almost no strength left and the fate of the battle was decided, Xin found a second wind and gave Zhuozi a real rebuff. Having waited until the enemy rushed to attack, Xin delivered his signature blow, which split the stone. Zhuozi dodged him with the blade, but Xin cut through the enemy's sword and stabbed him. At this moment, the ruler's advisor tried to escape, and Liao fired a poisoned arrow at him. Before his death, the advisor stabbed Liao with a knife, and Xin forgot about Cheng Jiao and rushed to save his friend. Taking advantage of the situation, the ruler disappeared. However, Liao was not harmed. Under his birdsuit, he wore protective chainmail. The heroes rushed to catch up with Cheng Jiao, and he decided to fight his brother. "You're not my brother, you bastard." And Injun wounded him, and then beat him and left him alive. Seeing the fall of his king, one of the generals decides to kill all of Injun's supporters so that when he comes to power they will not be executed as traitors. But this massacre is stopped by the appearance of General Wang Qi. He was involved in the confrontation between the brothers from the very beginning and deliberately lied about the death of General Chan in order to take his lands and protect his family and people from the king's men. His army protected ordinary citizens, and only thanks to this, civilians were not harmed. Now he has come to find out what Injun plans to do next. If he gives the wrong answer, Wang Qi will kill him. Injun said he plans to unify China under his leadership. Much blood will be shed, but eventually When all the kingdoms are conquered, the wars will end and there will be a long period of peace. Wang Qi liked this answer. He sided with Injin, but the rebel general still ordered an attack on the king. Wang Qi then showed him his strength. When the general himself tried to attack Injin, the ruler was defended by Sun. He then swore allegiance to the king and promised to one day become a general. Subtitle Editor A. Sinitskaya. Proofreader A. Egorova.